Good morning. This is Sean Phillips here to talk to you about a topic that's important to our school, our staff, and our students. That's People First Language, where we go about recognizing individuals, not disabilities. Before we get into People First Language, did you know that 1 in 5 individuals have a disability? I mean, think about all the disabilities out there in the world, whether it be a learning disability, a physical disability, or maybe a hearing impairment, vision impairment. There are all kinds of disabilities out there, and it's more common than most people think. In fact, having a disability is the most inclusive minority group that there is, because if you think about it, it includes people of any age, any religion, any ethnic groups, different socioeconomic statuses. It could be your friends, it could be family, it could be neighbors. There are all kinds of individuals out there that have disabilities of some sort. And the thing about a disability is that you could become disabled at any time. It can happen to anyone at any time. So, our goal as educators, here at our school, we want to provide an excellent education. We want all of our students to leave feeling like they're prepared to go to college or into the workforce and be successful as soon as they get there. Our goal is also to help students reach their potential. We never want students to not reach a level they're capable of. We can do this by challenging all of our students to be successful. Our goal is to instill confidence and to set and reach goals for each individual student. Every student should have aspirations in life, and they should have the courage and confidence to go out and try to attain those goals. And the last thing is, our goal is to always build character. We want our students to be quality individuals, productive members of society that are well-rounded. So, if that's our goal, then why don't our actions always match our words? A lot of time our language shapes beliefs about people. The way that we go about saying things just conveys our own tone about how we feel about different topics and individuals. Sometimes we tend to use labels or descriptors that create unfair stereotypes. Kids and adults feel like they're being characterized in a way that maybe doesn't even really apply to them. I mean, think about the word special needs. What does that imply? It implies that this person isn't just a regular individual. They have some special attention, and that immediately becomes what they're associated with. Sometimes we might refer to someone as the autistic kid. Well, that person's really just a kid that happens to have autism. So we really don't want to pigeonhole that individual and create all these stereotypes that we might have or preconceived notions about autism. What if we call a kid wheelchair bound? Well, someone that's wheelchair bound still can do lots of quality things. They're a very productive person. And just characterizing them solely around their wheelchair just doesn't fully encompass the individual that they are. A lot of times this promotes the deficits of people instead of their abilities. If our goals are to do all these great things for kids, why would we want to recognize things that are deficits and not necessarily focus on things that are their abilities to be successful? So here at our school, we should always think that disabilities don't define our students. All students should be treated as a person first. All students should be challenged. A rigorous academic curriculum is something that we all strive for. We want all of our students to feel like they're getting value out of their education. When we think about people with disabilities, they're really not different. They just work a little bit differently than maybe others do. So, how can we go about treating and promoting the equality of all students? Well, we'll use something called People First Language. Well, what is that? Well, People First Language emphasizes the person first, not the disability, because students aren't characterized by a disability. They are their own individual. For example, that autistic child, instead we would want to call them just a child with autism. They're still a child that just happens to have autism, just like I'm a principal that happens to have poor eyesight, so I'm a principal that has glasses. The wheelchair-bound student, we would just call them a person who uses a wheelchair. They're still just an individual that survives every day in the real world, and having a wheelchair doesn't make them any less of a person. A person that might be blind, instead of calling them blind, they're a person that is visually impaired. They still can function perfectly fine in the everyday world. They just have a slight impairment that maybe makes them operate a little bit differently. So what are some of the benefits of using People First Language? Well, it acknowledges that students are people over everything. They are people first. It doesn't set any limits on their ability. It shows that they're still capable of achieving at any level that other students can as well. Their disability doesn't hinder them. It just makes things different for them. Labels don't define students. Just because a person may have a diagnosis of something, we still don't know what effect that will have on them, and we don't want to just limit them based upon a label. It gives them the ability to fit in. We want every child to feel like they want to come to school and have a place that they can plug in. Well, by using People First language, we give them that ability. And it lets everyone know that having a disability isn't a problem. It just makes your life a little different. So, what can I do as an educator with People First language? Well, just try it. It's all about putting the person before their disability. Okay, it's not going to be easy. I know you're going to make some mistakes, but just forget about the stereotypes that you know, forget about any of the labels, and think about the person first. People are what matter, not disabilities. So here's a few other suggestions that might help you out to help our students with disabilities function in our school and feel more accepted. First, don't ever ask what's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just a little bit different. Don't ever assume that a student would need help just because they have a disability. They've been living with this disability possibly for their entire life, and they know how to adapt. So don't assume just because someone has a disability that they need help. And don't assume that students aren't happy with their situation. Many students are very happy no matter what life throws at them. And don't assume that just because students aren't using their devices that may help them with their disability, don't assume that they're going to use those all the time. Sometimes they can function perfectly well without them. The key thing is that we put all of our children first. So remember those goals we talked about as an educator? Providing an excellent education for all students, for helping students reach their potential, for instilling confidence in setting and reaching goals and building character? Well, this applies to all students. Certainly it applies to our general education students, but it also applies to any of our students that have disabilities. So please just treat everyone as people first and use People First language. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. My door is always open. Feel free to email me if you don't have time, or just call me on the phone. Give it a try. Everything will be great. Well, I hope that clears up a little bit about People First language. I appreciate your work in this area, and I know that we can provide a great educational experience for all of our students, regardless of if they have a disability or not.